never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is a cool day because I have got Celeste Yvonne with me. Celeste is a woman who has made it her mission to dispel the myths around the mummy wine culture. And it is such a topic that is close to my heart because my goodness, certainly we have been drinking heavily during or after the birth of our children. And it was something that was social and accepted and encouraged to a certain degree. And with hindsight, I have to just shake my head. And there's so much to be said. So I can't wait to have Celeste on my show. Celeste, welcome.
Thank you, Stephan. So glad to be here.
Oh, it's cool. Normally, people don't just wake up when they're sort of, in their teenager years and say, you know what? One day I'm going to write a book about mummy wine culture and I'm going to be out there, speak out heavily out about that. There's no 18-year-old ever. How was your younger years? Did you use wine? Did you use alcohol to bring out maybe the wilder side in you, the nicer side, the more exposed side?
Absolutely. I was very much involved in college binge drinking. That was definitely part of my story. And I wouldn't say I was very interested in wine until it felt like a more sophisticated drink in your 20s, right? Like
Exactly.
we fool ourselves into thinking now that, it's all about the body of this alcohol substance. And if we smell it and if we kind of stir it, then we are sophisticated people too. And so, yeah, I definitely reached, the wine appreciation years starting in my 20s and then in my 30s. Yeah.
Well, let's not be silly. There is a certain culture around wine specifically that is beautiful. And we basically, over the last 20, 30 years, we have seen a huge growth in wine production around the world. And as such, with techniques changing, new grapes, new wine production techniques came on, and I mean there's a wealth of beautiful taste out there. So let's not be silly. So for the wine connoisseurs out there, okay, I'll go along with that. And I certainly was in your shoes. I certainly appreciated a nice Sancerre or I could tell you a little bit about wine, etc. Well, let's rephrase that. I could tell you a little bit about the first two glasses of wine.
Right.
After the second bottle, you could give me Chateau de Pisse, and I wouldn't know about it. I think that's the fair answer. Was that the same with you?
Yeah. And I think let's to be totally candid, I think a lot of marketing went into the sophistication of wine for many, many years to get us to this place where we now can connect red wine with red meat and white wine with fish. I mean, a lot of people know a lot of information about wine, but I'll remember, in my 20s and 30s going to wine tastings and whatnot, and then telling me like I could spit the alcohol out after I had the sip and thinking, ha, 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 what a joke. Like who would ever do that? Because some people do drink wine for the taste. I was not one of them.
And in all fairness, whilst we are trying to kid ourselves with regards to our sophistication, there is an English chef, Heston Blumenthal, there who is a science of cooking. It's really all about molecular chemistry, etc. And I've been to one of his shows, and he basically did some experiments with people from the audience out there, and he basically he made you literally believe that you're drinking a most full-bodied, beautiful red wine, when in reality you had a white wine in your hands. There is a lot what our mind is putting upon that alcoholic drink that is going in there, and you're alluding to that, the powerful social engineering that has gone behind that, our experience with wine. Bloody hell.
Well, it's brilliant. When you think about it from a restaurant point of view, if you can convince your customer that this $20 glass of red wine will make the $50 steak you just ordered taste better, I mean, wow. I mean, you're winning. You are
Touché.
absolutely winning.
Touché. And you have to also say, if we are there, I mean, there was a very vested interest in there from the restaurants, because that's where you make your money. You maybe make 30% markup on your meat, but you've got a 100% markup on your wine typically, and then some. So it is all, there's very much a thing there. But then again, let's not be silly. Celeste, I challenge you. There is so much evidence out there that red wine is healthy for your heart, that white wine is whatever good, beer has got vitamins. What would you say to that?
Well, as somebody who believed that and kind of clung to those as my talking points for such a long time, I think it's much easier now to go online and look up the long-term consequences of moderate to high risk drinking. So that in and of itself, we are learning better. We are learning that, consuming multiple glasses of wine a night isn't necessarily heart healthy, like we might have fooled ourselves to believe. But when I'm talking with people, more often than not, I try to focus on the short-term consequences, because I think, for as much wine as or alcohol you might be consuming that you think is safe or harmless, the fact that it does leave you feeling gross the next day, the fact that it is numbing you out, the fact that for me personally, it was impacting my parenting, my focus. It was causing me to be more dysregulated at a time when my children needed me regulated.
Beautiful.
Impacting our daily sleep. I mean, these are all short-term consequences.
Absolutely.
That we don't, I think, hone in on enough when people are having the debate over how safe or healthy is alcohol.
I love the way you phrased it. All the things that have been put out there in my book, My Steps to Sobriety. The third edition is coming out now, and I've gone through it and with a fine tooth comb. And I actually looked again at the evidence for those various statements that are made. And I've got a long list of positive statements about wine and beer. And it's all basically marketing ploys. And it's taking little facts out of one obscure study and then highlighting that. For example, that the red wine is good for your cardiovascular health. Well, that all came really when people looked in the 80s, 90s at the Mediterranean food plan and Mediterranean lifestyle. And as part of that, red wine was part of that. Therefore, alcohol industry, red wine is good. Here, take that out and go for it. Not saying that the Mediterranean food plan also has intermittent fasting, has a high percentage of fiber and all those other healthy things. So people, especially alcohol industry, is taking little snippets out and then puts that out there in solo and somehow makes that sound good. And I think that is what you and I are here to shout from the rooftops. Alcohol is not healthy in any way, shape, or color. And 2017, 2018, Lancet, a review article, finally spoke out very clearly. There is no safe limit for alcohol. Every single glass of alcohol will reduce your life. Full stop. Celeste, you're on the money, you're on the button. And I love it how you phrased that there. You already segued into the consequences, and that's what we're going to talk now. But I wanted to take that wind out of the sails of anyone who says no, alcohol is healthy and those kind of quasi medical kind of benefits. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that.
Right. Or
Celeste.
distinguishing too between beer and wine versus hard alcohol. Like one of them's healthier than the other. But at the end of the day, the unhealthy part of all of them, is the ethanol. It's the part that makes you feel drunk. I mean, that's the bad part. So to rate them on a scale of which one's healthier, that's all fine and good, but you're still how any way you say it, you're still playing with fire.
Hell yes. And that's a really good way that you say it. So here you were, a young woman, being the life of the party once you had a few drinks and then some, the binge drinking. Define binge. What is a binge for you? Well, a binge for one person is a breakfast for the other one. So how much would you drink?
Yeah. And I had so many fool's rules about what made my drinking healthy or acceptable for most of my life, which, for me, like a binge would have been 4 or more drinks a night. And I justified it by saying, I don't drink every day. Some days I only have 1 or 2. I had all these little rules. I never drink before 5 o'clock. I never drink and drive. I mean, I had all these things in my head that made a pretty normal occurrence of a blackout feel okay and justified and perfectly healthy.
So stop. 4 drinks. So we need to define the drink, because some people talk about drinks, some people talk about units of alcohol. So when I talk about a drink, I talk about at least 250 ml glass of wine. So therefore 4 drinks is a liter bottle of wine. So that's 4 drinks for me. Is that what you define as a drink? Or is it kind of, I go to the restaurant and I have, I don't know, they zip the bottle and then there's maybe about this much wine in there, and that's what they call a drink. What is a drink for you?
No, I would say the first you described. For me, there are, for me, in my drinking, there were 4 glasses of wine in a bottle of wine.
There you go.
And so 4 glasses would have been a bottle.
Cool. So that's actually 14 standard units of alcohol if we look at it. So therefore, now we're talking. Okay, these are no longer rookie numbers. This is okay, now you're going to the meat. And I think that's so important for us, that we actually not compare oranges with apples. And I think that's one of the pitfalls. I only have 1 glass. Well, if your 1 glass is 1 liter, yeah, come on. Okay, right. So, and that's another way that people fool themselves. Brilliant.
And we fool ourselves too by, I didn't start with a bottle of wine. When I became a mom, it started with a glass. It was a nightly glass of wine, not even every night, but an occasional evening glass of wine. It builds up from there. I mean, for most of us, it is a slow build. And it isn't necessarily like you're starting at square one, drinking 4 or more drinks. So it becomes like, for me, it was such a slow build that even by the time I was at a bottle a night, it felt okay and safe because I felt fully in control. And that's where, the mind fuck happens, where it's just like, I know this looks bad, but it's totally cool.
Well, see, we have got roadside recycling here. So if you actually once a week bring out your very big container full of wine bottles that's sort of spilling over, and it's sort of a bit of a giveaway that maybe compared with the neighbors, or that you actually sometimes, when no one is around, you take some of your wine bottles, put them into the thing of the neighbor, that it doesn't look so bad. Was that something that occurred to you?
So yes, I have multiple strategies for making the empty wine bottles disappear. Because again, in my head, this is safe, it's cool. But to my husband, him seeing 7 bottles of wine for 1 week's worth of,
Yeah.
1 week's worth would be alarming. So I had to make sure that, because he didn't understand what I understood, which like, this is perfectly safe and healthy. So yes, wine bottles would disappear. I would take them. I don't think I necessarily took them to the neighbors, but I would hide them in the recycling underneath other things.
Exactly.
I would drive them to the gas station and throw them away at the gas station trash. I mean,
Yes.
there were strategies. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I know. Okay. What is the best place to hide a bottle? Come on. So what was the best place for you to hide the bottles from your husband?
For me, like as if there was a bottle in the house at all, I was always kind of walking on glass. So for me, the strategy was always an exit strategy. Get the bottle out of the house as soon as possible to avoid any sort of possibility of being caught. So for me, that would involve, finding the nearest public trash can.
Mm-hmm. So, but I don't understand, because after a bottle of wine, everyone can smell it. Everyone can see it. So here you were hiding, you became a master hider of alcohol bottles, yet you can't hide the smell. Why did you not migrate to vodka? There's less smell.
If I had kept drinking, I absolutely would have migrated to vodka. I'm grateful that my drinking story stopped before it got there. But it was just a matter of time too.
Okay. What did the alcohol give you? It gave you the disinhibition as a younger person. It gives you the craziness, the wildness, and that's okay. That's when we are young, when we are stupid. Then you've got life coming, huh? You had pregnancy. May I ask, did you have a few glasses of wine during your pregnancy, or were you completely sober?
I was completely sober, and it wasn't because I didn't think having a little bit of alcohol when I was pregnant wouldn't be okay. It was because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to stop.
Beautiful, beautiful. So from the word go, you had the suspicion that you're a sitting duck for the alcohol to escalate.
I think so. Even if I wasn't ready to admit to that, subconsciously, it was clearly there.
Yeah. So baby was born. How was your mood? How was you? Were you elated? Were you tired? Were you sad? Were there any maybe not so bright times?
Oh, most of it wasn't bright for me. I struggle with postpartum anxiety and depression with both my children. And it felt extremely overwhelming, so scary, especially with my first, feeling like I wasn't prepared or even capable of taking care of this baby, feeling like a good mother would know how to soothe him. And I could not. It was a lot of imposter syndrome.
Oh. Okay.
And feeling like I wasn't qualified or capable. And that was hard. That was a really hard transition for me.
Thank you for being so honest. And I don't know which woman would ever feel qualified to look after a baby the first time around. I think this is such a normal thing. Yet we somehow expect in our society, we are it. I'm a young woman. Look at me. I'm here. Well, did you balance different roles? Were you still working?
Yeah. And I think there's so much pressure to act like you do know what you're doing and that you're loving all of it. Like that,
Bullshit. Yeah.
all the pain and suffering in your life is healing because of this new precious being in your life, and you feel fulfilled in a way you've never felt before. I feel like these were all the things I thought I was supposed to be feeling, even though
God.
I was dying inside a little.
Oh.
And, here in the US at 6 weeks, I returned back to work, which is normal and expected. My 6 weeks of maternity leave were unpaid. And I was told directly by my employers that the fact that I had a job to even come back to was by their good grace. So I
Wow.
returned back to work 6 weeks, started to understand how to manage daycare now with breastfeeding with a full-time, actually, I think I was a part-time job at that point. And managing just the same life stressors that you always have along with it.
Wow. Wow. Did you have an insight into the need for nutritional support, for simply physical support for your body? I mean, you have just grown this 4-kilogram beautiful new being. You've stripped everything inside your body bare in order to create this new thing. And most women just getting on with life, or not realizing that they actually are completely depleted in many, many substances. Was there any awareness of that? Was there anything clicking, or did you just get thrown into deep end and now swim?
I feel like depleted is a very good word for it. After you have a child, you're physically healing, you're mentally healing, your hormones are going crazy. They're so confused. Your relationship has just changed drastically as you navigate a third person in your family. And I really felt, and as I was navigating postpartum depression, I really felt like a fragment of a human who's literally giving my nutrition, my best nutrition to my baby now, through breastfeeding. And it felt like even my own body, I felt this a little bit in pregnancy, but I felt it even more in breastfeeding. My body was no longer my own. My body was a milk factory to serve my child.
Yeah.
And that was my most important job right now. I think there's a lot of self-imposed pressure that breastfeeding was extremely important, even to the detriment of my mental health. And I think that weighed in on me too.
Oh, thank you for your honesty, because there is a huge pressure. Now, from a doctor's point of view, let's be very, very, very clear. There's nothing better than breast milk for a newborn. And we unfortunately have seen it in the developing world, or everywhere really, where somehow there was a pressure from mums to move very quickly to formula. The children are definitely having very much health, a reduced health status in depending upon how early you get weaned from the mother milk to formula. There are no two ways around it. At the same token, very few women do express the mental load that actually is there on them. So for that, I'm very grateful that you actually bring that up, because you're not alone in that perception, in that confusing state where you don't know what's right, what's wrong. And there's even more shame and guilt now that you actually say, wow, that you actually have got that feeling. How dare I have that feeling? I'm supposed to be this sugar sweet mummy. And yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Did the alcohol help?
So I started kind of working alcohol back into my life very slowly, very cautiously, trying to understand how to navigate breastfeeding with drinking, and taking it, as responsibly as I could with an alcoholic substance. And it felt like kind of my light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
After a long day with a lot of stress and pressures, with feeling like my body was not mine, but something I had to give to someone else most hours of the day, that drink at the end of the day felt like finally something for me. Finally, mommy time. And not even mommy time, finally me time.
Mm.
I'm mommy for 22 hours of the day, but for these 2, I get to be me.
Wow, beautifully said. Beautifully said. I 100% experienced exactly the same kind of thing. When you drank your wine, what was happening in your body? Did you feel your shoulders relax?
Yeah, I mean, a decompression, a softening, a mental lightening, the fluttering. For about 20 minutes, it feels like everything's just right. Like maybe I am a good mom. Maybe this is all going to work out
Beautiful.
for about 20 minutes.
No. It is longer if you drink a bit more. So
Well, you got to reach for a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Because here you finally got that release. You finally got that relief of the pressures. And now you should stop. No. Give me another one. Another one.
Right. That felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try that again.
Exactly right. And that is the vicious circle that then very quickly spirals out of control, isn't it?
Yes.
Goodness. You mentioned the role of your husband, or your partner. You said that you were hiding the bottles from him. Does that mean that he was an absolute teetotaler, or?
No, and he partook with me. By the time I was starting to hide bottles, by the time I was drinking, 4 or more a night, this was kind of years into my motherhood journey. Like it really was, it was a slow descent followed by getting pregnant with my second, abstaining, and then a quicker descent the second time around. And then I was at a place, by the time I quit, my children were 1 and 3. And I was probably at a bottle a night. Again, not every night, but enough that I felt really awful most days. And it genuinely felt like alcohol is all I had left to look forward to. And this is speaking as somebody who's wanted to be a mom my entire life. So to now be at this place where it felt like alcohol was all I had to look forward to when I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, 2 healthy children, a loving, compassionate husband. I had the dog, I had the house, I had everything I've ever dreamed of. And all I wanted to do was drink not 1 glass of wine, but an entire bottle and get loaded each night was such a red flag.
But it was also what, at that moment, gave you the relief. It was also what took the pain away at that moment in time, because the alternative would have been more pain, more stress, more suffering. So, and that is what so many people don't understand, that the alcohol serves a purpose for you there and then. It is the Band-Aid that at least temporarily hides the pus or stops the bleeding for a little bit. But it is there because it does something to you. Did you seek help in the sense of, did you go to your GP, to your family physician, and actually discuss the issue of your mood or your perceptions around the pregnancy or the being a mum now?
I did not. I, very much kept what was happening within me a secret, even as I saw things continuously getting worse and feeling worse. I had a few moments of contemplation that maybe I need to rethink this lifestyle. But it wasn't until it was a December Monday morning at work, dropped my kids off at daycare, was going in the office, going through my emails, and I had a panic attack. And that was kind of my moment where I knew I had to make a dramatic change to the way I was living my life if I was going to have anything to look forward to in the future. And I say that because my father, who was an alcoholic my entire childhood, most of my life, he had a stroke when he was 52. And it disabled him for the rest of his life. And when I was having that panic attack, I worried that maybe I was having a stroke. And the realization that what I was doing right now was a form of self-sabotage. And if it wasn't now, it eventually later will come back to bite me in the ass, really struck me that day. And really gave me the conviction I needed to make a change.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. What made that anxiety attack different? Because you would have had anxiety over the previous 5 years, 6 years. Why were you suddenly ready to receive the message?
Because in that panic attack, I thought I was having a stroke.
Good.
And that was, the scare I needed to think, if this isn't a stroke now, it absolutely will be later.
Nice.
And that's not, like, I saw how that played out with my dad. That is not the life I wanted to head towards. That's not the life I wanted for my family.
Sure.
And I needed to make a change, and I needed to do it starting today.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. How did you make that change?
So the first thing I did was I told my mom, and I told her right then that day. I went to the ER and I told her in the waiting room that I think I'm an alcoholic, and she was super surprised. I've always kept that extremely separate from her because she was married to an alcoholic for most of her life, or, for a lot of her life. And I knew that would be a huge trigger for her, but she was super supportive. But I also knew by telling her, I don't get to take this back. I can't start drinking again next week and she's going to brush it off, right? Like, she's going to take this very seriously. She's going to call me on it. So by me saying that and saying that out loud to her, I knew I was doing something permanent. Like, I was making a permanent choice that whether or not I can live alcohol free or not, our relationship will never be the same again. And that was important and serious to me. And it was what I needed to have that accountability to start my day one. And that's really all I did in the beginning. I'm sad to say. I never went to a meeting. I didn't read any books in the beginning. I kind of clung to this secret with a lot of shame and self-loathing that this was my burden to carry. And I don't want anybody to know. And it wasn't until months later that I started to read up on it and connect with other people and learn and understand kind of the why and do the therapy work, all the things that we do to build a sustainable, sober lifestyle. But my early months was, if I could go back and do those again, I would do them so differently.
Absolutely. I mean, you were white knuckling it. That's how I called it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It is, and that is the hard thing. It is. So people say, does sobriety work? Well, let's phrase it like that. Depends upon what kind of structures you put in place in order to support yourself, what kind of community you build up or get yourself involved in that supports you, what kind of nutrition you're taking, what kind of self-development tools you're developing. If you don't do any of that, well, I would say that your chance of a relapse in the first year would be sort of 100%. I would say, make it 99. Okay, maybe there's the odd guy who makes it, but no. So you did it the hard way.
Did it the hard way.
Did you have any withdrawals? Did you have any immediate medical problems?
No,
When you stopped drinking?
I did not. It was the week of Christmas. I would say the hardest part of that week was just the triggers everywhere. Everyone around me is drinking mimosas at breakfast, eggnog, spiked cider. I mean, it was everywhere. Champagne, like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That for me was the most challenging part about it. But on the other hand, my mom was with me for most of those parties that week. And even if she wasn't physically by my side the entire time, which she wasn't, she wasn't holding my hand for all of it, but I felt empowered. I didn't feel like she was babysitting me. I felt empowered by her presence to stay strong.
Beautiful.
And that was the connection I needed to get through what otherwise would have been an impossible week to get through.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And there is the power of community there.
Yes,
there's the power of you opening up. And that is such a wonderful, wonderful thing. Oh, beautiful. And I'm so pleased for you that you had that awakening at a time when the alcohol had not yet left for you with irreparable scars on the inside or on the outside, or with a maybe more legal the implications, DUIs, losing a job, etc.
And it was, all of it though, all of it was just a matter of time. I was drinking at a rate that any and all of those things would have been inevitable if I continued. There's just no way around that without ramifications. So I'm so lucky that I was able to quit when I did without all those serious consequences. But I see other people in the sober communities who quit at the same time as me, going through the exact same things with serious ramifications. And so I say that by saying it wasn't because I'm better than other people. It wasn't because I had less of a problem than other people. It's because I was freaking lucky.
I love it how you put that. Exactly. So it's a matter of time. And there are only 3 outcomes for someone who finds themselves so much in love with alcohol. It's either death or jail or recovery. These are really the 3 outcomes that we ultimately face. Having said all that, it's all quite pretty to say, yes, of course, we change and all the negative things go away. Well, first of all, they don't go away this quickly. Your depression, your anxiety, your maybe to a certain degree PTSD from your experiences during your pregnancy, or during the early childhood years. Maybe also the sheer fact that there's no longer this Band-Aid there. How the hell did you replace that?
Yeah. And it's such a good question because, we talked about earlier how in motherhood, it reached a place where alcohol literally felt like the only thing I had.
Exactly.
I had nothing else. And so this idea of someone saying you have to take that off the table too would have ripped me up inside, because Absolutely. It would have felt like you've taken everything else from me. Like, don't take this from me too. And I think that's why I really dug this hole in myself in those early months of shame and rage and sadness and just like this life. I'm doomed to this life of deprivation forever. And it wasn't until I was able to start finding, not only community, other mothers who were sober, but finding things I enjoy, tools for my toolkit. I started to embrace physical activity, nature. I mean, these were the things that built me back up to where at the end of the day, when motherhood can feel really draining and depleting, I have so much more to fill up my cup.
Nice.
No pun intended.
Touche. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But that is something that we need to learn. And that is a hard slog, actually. Because first of all, alcohol is an incredibly powerful substance, and it alters the perception that we have. I know, for example, my taste was changed for a long, long time. And it was really probably half a year, 3/4 of a year into my sobriety that one day I stopped at the roadside and bought some strawberries on sale there. And I had one of the strawberries there, and I suddenly thought, wow, this is the most beautiful strawberry I've ever tasted in my life. And I thought, what is that? And it only then later dawned on me that slowly but surely my senses started readjusting to what was normal. And that was scary, yet beautiful. And that made me suddenly appreciate living an intentional life in such a better way, in such a more thoughtful way, intentional way, really. Wow. Okay. Cool. What helped you? So your community was there, but and sport was there, activity. But how do you do that with little children? Come on, do you have one each shoulder and then go running, or how does it work?
Well, kind of literally, yes. With my first child, I was trying to figure this out. Like, how do I incorporate exercise when I have a child here, like on my lap 24/7, when I'm not working? And I got a running stroller when he was about 6 months. And I was never a runner, never even considered myself a runner. I'm not a runner. I don't like running. But one day I was walking him around, the neighborhood of our house, and he was crying. And I just started to jog. And he quieted down. And I'm like, look at me, I'm jogging. And no joke, like that started my running passion.
Excellent.
2-3 weeks ago, I just ran my 5th marathon. I have been running for less than 10 years, and I just ran my 5th marathon. So, don't tell me anything's not possible.
Excellent. Of course, I could say, are you just running away from your problems?
Well, you could say, have I transferred addictions? We talk about all the stuff in therapy and whatnot, and I think when you take something you're passionate about and you find a healthy, safe way to practice it, you can find a way to do it that is healthy, but still exciting and beautiful and fun. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to feel guilty about that.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely do not.
Absolutely. I love the way you've answered that. That is exactly it. And whilst we could phrase it in a negative way of running away from things, I could also phrase it very positively, that a lot of runners go into a state of meditation. during the running, and therefore actually calming their mind down, living in the now, doing all the positive things. So no, it is again, it's up to us how we frame activity, how we frame certain things for us, and we can do it in daily life. When you were talking about sport, I made it more a point in my life of being active. So I've got a Garmin, a smartwatch that I can program with regards to, okay, now I record what I do. For example, gardening. I've got something gardening in there. So if I go in the garden and then I click that, and typically I go pretty hard. So, there might be sweat, there might be, a bit of stretching there might be 100 push-ups there by the time I've pulled the weeds. Well, that's all activity. And I record that. And I actually, I put in more activity every day as a different way, because my life is very busy. So like a young mum's life is very busy. So you don't have to start with a marathon. You can start with 5 minutes somewhere, but celebrate those 5 minutes. And if your life is worth living, it's worth recording. So therefore, I do that with my Garmin. For you, it might be writing it down in a journal. Did you find journaling, or did you find documenting your journey a benefit? Was that something that came across your mind?
I would say day counting was very important in early recovery for me because it helped keep me accountable. It also gave me something to look forward to. I really embraced my day tracker as a reminder too, that however hard this day was, I'd never have to do it again. And
Nice.
that really encouraged me, especially when I felt like I should be further along, or I felt like, what's the point? I used that as motivation to keep going, because I know what day 1 feels like, but I don't know what day 90 feels like. So let's sleep on it and see what day 90 feels like tomorrow, just as an example.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Indeed, I've forgotten actually about that. Same for me. And I was introduced to, I did a 4-week rehab. And during that rehab, we had to come up with a good motivational saying every day, either reading it from somewhere or making it up, whatever. We all had to come up with something. And I actually, after discharge, I continued that amongst the series of friends. So for quite some years, I sent daily texts around with sort of, some kind of affirmation, motivation. But it was, day 382, and then bang. So it was always the day there, and it was a kind of a celebration of another day. Having said that, these are the positive sides of sobriety, of recovery. There are, of course, the urges. How did you deal with urges? And did you figure out what caused them for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've dug so deep into triggers and urges that I could probably write a couple books on them. I mean, that is one. I mean, that is such a great benefit of sobriety, is you really learn so much more about your body, your thinking patterns, what motivates you, in a way that I never knew or understood during my drinking days. And now, when I get a trigger or an urge for whatever it is, whatever it might be, I can quickly say, that's because I'm hungry. That's because I slept poorly last night. That's because I am clinging to that conversation I had that didn't go well from yesterday. And something they said just made me think of it. It's really, it's pretty easy to quickly analyze like how your brain does what it does when you're paying attention.
Exactly.
And in sobriety, we get to pay attention.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Halt was always the thing for me. And to this day, right now I've had a beautiful morning of interviews. I feel myself going a bit hungry. Angry? Hell no. I feel very good. Lonely? No. I've had compassion and great connections. Tired? No. So right now I'm a bit hungry. Do I think about alcohol? No. Do I think about a cheesecake? No. I'm actually in a good place. Now, if I was to continue like that, push, very soon I would be tired. I would feel just drained, and I have not looked after myself. And then my body will do magic things, like saying, hey, look, if you just have a glass of wine, then, you get your second wind. Just keep going. You can do 8 interviews in a day. Come on, have just a bottle of wine next to you. Keep going. Okay. And you just think, what the fuck are you talking, you stupid brain? But that is what is happening up there in our mind.
It can make anything make sense.
I
I was just thinking about HALT. I feel like in parenting, and maybe in all of life, but especially in parenting, we need to add an acronym to it. So it'd be like HALT-O. So it'd be hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or O for overstimulated. Because that is such a huge one.
Nice.
For me in motherhood.
And
it's a big trigger.
Well, and guess what we're doing in our daily lives. I mean, is that not, are you not just describing the 2023 for most people in the United States?
Well, yeah, we're all doing 10 things at once. And then when you do it, when you've got kids screaming in the other room and you smell dinner on fire, yeah, you're going to be overstimulated.
Okay, this is a very good point. I love it. HALT-O. Yeah, exactly. Hey, you made that up. I give that to you, but I will steal it.
Go for it.
Yeah, because this is actually really, really good. I couldn't agree more. And it's that finally, when you're stopping, when you're calming down, and if you have never learned to do it in another way, now that's where the problem is. That's where the alcohol comes in.
And that's just it. I think that's why in parenting, I was like, yeah, okay, maybe I shouldn't be drinking a bottle of wine a night, but what else? What are my other options to help me take it down a couple notches? And that's it's not a trick, it's a tool, learning what you can do instead that's not going to come back to bite you in the butt tomorrow. And for me, that looks like, whether it means taking my dogs out on a walk to get out of the house, or putting on noise canceling headphones. I mean, there are multiple things we can be doing that do take it down, the overstimulation, a few notches, without, pouring poison down my throat.
Beautiful thing. But of course, there is the shame and guilt, this perfect mother that is there always for the child. And I think that is where sometimes childhood groups, etc., come, or mums with or just a circle of friends work together. In a different life, I worked and lived in West Africa, and I remember a situation there where I was sitting in a restaurant with a female coworker, and she said, "Watch that over there." And she pointed to some women who were sitting there, and a young woman with her baby had just arrived. And what happened is, so she sat down, and the girl next to her took the baby and cuddled it and played with it. And then the baby was reached on to the next one. Meanwhile, mommy was sitting there and just had time out and just talked, and the baby was going around, and half an hour later it sort of made the round back, and mommy had her baby back. But that was half an hour of break for her. And I had never seen that until this coworker actually pointed it out. And this was such a beautiful way of naturally happen in that society. And it was mind-blowing, actually. But that's not what we see nowadays. No.
I mean, that sounds like a dream. That sounds like a dream come true. Like, I feel like anytime somebody, not because I was a bad mom and not because I didn't want to be with my baby, but to know that my baby was safely in someone's hands so I could take a shower.
Exactly.
So I could shave my legs. I mean, whatever it was I needed to do without feeling like I had to leave my baby in whatever, the crib, whatnot, or in a situation where it's like, you know what, I'm just not going to do it today. I'm not going to shower today. I'm not going to shave. That's the difference.
The problem, of course, is here we are. We have gone through our lives and we have made all the mistakes. And now we have essentially gained this understanding, which mainly came from making poor choices in the past. They always say the youth is wasted on the young. So how the hell do we change that? Are we not, the two of us are not preaching to the converted here? Because the people who are listening to my show are probably more in the 40s, 50s. They're not in the 20s and are just going through their first motherhood. And how the hell do you reach those people and actually say, hey guys, it's not your fault. You're not a bad mom. You're not a bad person. How do we do that?
I mean, there's so much. I mean, that's such a complicated question.
Hmm.
You know, the thing that I try to do now that I know is different than how I was raised is I try to show my children what healthy coping mechanisms look like,
Hmm.
what a alcohol-free life looks like. You know, my husband still drinks. He drank differently than me. He always has. He's a moderate drinker, but my kids get to see two different ways of being an adult. And there are two ways that I hope they will consider or keep in mind when the opportunity presents itself for them as options, where it's not all about binging. You know, if I was still drinking, it would never be a way of drinking that I would want for my children. That's certainly not how I would want them to grow up to drink. So for me to still drink that way in front of them, it would be such a hypocritical way of living. And yet that's the way I grew up, with my father, you know, drinking in such a way that it left scars on the whole family. So I have to hope that by showing my children that sobriety is an option, and with the understanding that, you know, 80% of the population drinks, so it is more likely that they will partake than not. Just knowing like there are other ways of coping, and it doesn't have to be the default. And that's something I hope we can teach young adults too, especially new moms or new parents, and trying to veer away from this mommy wine culture, this mothers need alcohol to cope with raising our children, to cope with the stressors of parenting. If we can transition that narrative to something more supportive, what mothers genuinely need and what we can genuinely offer each other, then maybe we can offer a more sustainable strategy for motherhood.
It's beautifully said. It's beautifully said. And I love it that you have gone out there, that you have been the guest on many shows, that you've been a guest on, that your book is out there and pushing it. So tell us a bit about your book. It's not about a wine. We've had it beautifully there. For those of you watching the video, it has been there all the time over her right shoulder there. Tell us about your book. Where can we find your book?
Yes. So my book is available on Amazon or anywhere you get your favorite place to get your books. And it's called It's Not About the Wine, The Loaded Truth Behind Mommy Wine Culture. And I really hope it shows parents, particularly mothers, other ways, healthier ways of coping with our biggest stressors without alcohol, but also sharing my drinking story, my sober story, as well as a dozen other women, other mothers, how they learned that alcohol would not fix their parenting stressors, and what we all do now instead, and how to deal with those situations or those problems that, whether or not you drink, we all face, because parenting is extremely stressful, and alcohol is not going to fix it.
Beautiful. If people want to get in touch with you, if they want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
I'm on social media, on Instagram and Facebook at the Ultimate Mom Challenge, and people can find me there.
Brilliant. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because all of our links are down there. Whilst you're down there, press the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment about something that really struck you in this interview, because we want to hear your experiences. We want you to be involved. We want you to explore your own emotions, your own responses that are coming up within you in response to what we have discussed here, because both Celeste and I, we are here to just make you think, make you feel, make you explore your own reality and see if maybe, just maybe, there might be other ways that you can live your life in a fuller way, in a more intentional way, rather than trying to escape your reality, trying to numb yourself, trying to just escape that moment, get that fleeting moment of bliss that is tomorrow, then leading to anxiety, the mixture of hangover and anxiety. So no, I think we all can do better, and I think we all can do better by looking at those who have been in the darkness and are now trying to be the light in the darkness of others. And you are a classic example. Celeste, you're an amazing woman. Thank you very much for your honesty, for your transparency, for your passion. I had a wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here.
An absolute pleasure. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.